They thought they could scare my family. They thought sending 3 fake cops onto my property would break me. But they didn't know who I was, or that they'd picked the wrong woman to mess with. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Oak Ridge Meadows, the kind of day when the sun glows golden, kids play down the street, and you don't expect chaos to roll up your driveway. I had just come home from a supply run, a box of feed in the truck bed, when I saw it, 3 men standing in my yard. They weren't in uniform, but they wore matching dark shirts that said HOA cop across the chest, complete with phony badges clipped to their belts. My wife Sarah stood backed against the chicken coop, calm but tense. Her hands were steady, but her jaw was set. I could tell she was trying not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. The tallest of the 3 was barking orders at her, demanding to inspect the property for code violations. His buddies flanked him, arms crossed like they were about to arrest somebody. That was my first clue this wasn't official business. The second clue was the way their cheap badges caught the light. Shiny aluminum, the kind you order online for costume parties. I parked, stepped out, and shut the truck door, slow. Every muscle in my body remembered the weight of real combat gear, the sound of orders shouted under pressure. Those instincts don't fade. They sleep until someone threatens your family. What's going on here? I asked, voice level. The leader turned toward me, puffing out his chest. Sir, HOA inspection. You've been cited for unauthorized livestock structures. We're here to document and enforce compliance. I looked at Sarah. She gave a tiny shake of her head. No paperwork, no notice, just threats. You're trespassing, I said flatly. HOA or not, you don't step foot on private property without consent or a warrant. You want to start quoting rules? I can too. The man smirked. Big talk for someone behind on dues. President Loretta says you're a problem. We fix problems. That was all I needed to hear. Loretta, the self-appointed dictator of Oak Ridge Meadows, had been itching for revenge ever since I called her out for misuse of HOA funds at the last meeting. But this? Sending men impersonating police officers? That's a felony. I stepped closer, closing the space between us. You've got 3 minutes to leave my property before this turns into something worse than a code violation. The leader smirked, mistaking restraint for fear. His hand brushed the fake holster on his belt. Sarah's eyes flicked to mine. She knew that look. The air got heavy still. You sure you want to do this? I said quietly. He sneered. You gonna stop us? My lips curved just enough to show teeth. You've got no idea who you're talking to. The countdown in my head began. 3 minutes. That's all they had left. The leader took one more arrogant step toward Sarah, and that was his last mistake. He reached for her wrist, barking something about non-compliance. My vision tunneled. I didn't think. I reacted. Years of training don't leave you. They just wait for the wrong man to cross the line. My hand shot out, twisting his wrist and locking it backward in a split second. The fake badge on his belt clattered against the gravel as he went face first into the dirt with a grunt. The other 2 froze, eyes wide, not expecting their boss to hit the ground that fast. Sarah stepped aside, cool as ever. Told you not to touch me, she muttered. One of the others lunged, trying to grab me from the side. I pivoted, swept his leg, and he hit the ground so hard the air left his lungs in a gasp. The third reached for his fake radio, like he was about to call for backup, but I was already on him. One shove, a quick arm lock, and he was kissing the hood of my truck before he even knew what happened. Still think you're HOA cops? I growled. The first one groaned from the ground. You broke my arm. No, I said calmly. I stopped you from breaking the law. I stood in the middle of my yard, surrounded by 3 men groaning in fake uniforms. The hens in the coop were flapping like crazy, feathers drifting through the air, but Sarah didn't move. She just crossed her arms, the corner of her mouth twitching like she was trying not to smile. 3 minutes, she said quietly. You said they'd regret it in 3 minutes. I checked my watch. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Close enough. The one pinned against my truck started blubbering. We didn't mean no harm, man. She told us it was just a warning job. We thought it was legit. She? I said. You mean Loretta? He swallowed hard. Yeah, the HOA president. She paid us. Said we were just supposed to scare your wife a little. Didn't say you were some kind of psycho. I smiled, just enough to make him squirm. Tell her next time she wants a message delivered, she better send a letter. I released him, and he stumbled backward, shaking. The others scrambled up too, bruised, humiliated, one clutching his wrist, another limping. They stumbled toward their unmarked sedan, engines sputtering as they tried to get away. Sarah dusted her hands off. Guess we'll need new gravel, she said. I chuckled, and maybe a new HOA president. That night I pulled the footage from my security cameras and backed it up twice. One copy for me, one for the sheriff. Impersonating an officer was serious business. And by morning, I planned to make sure every single one of those phonies and their boss learned exactly how serious. The HOA thought they could intimidate us. They had no idea what storm they'd just unleashed. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The truth went public faster than anyone expected. By Monday morning, every resident in Oak Ridge Meadows had seen the footage. 3 fake HOA cops storming onto my property, trying to intimidate my wife and me dismantling them. The video spread like wildfire across Facebook, TikTok, and the local news circuit. One anchor even called it the cleanest takedown in HOA history. Loretta, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, tried to contain the fire. She released a press statement calling it a misunderstanding and claiming the men were part of a new community enforcement initiative. The problem? The badges those men wore weren't real. The vests said HOA cops, but the serial numbers were fake, the IDs were printed at a copy shop, and the cruiser-style SUV they arrived in was rented under Loretta's personal account. The sheriff's office got involved quickly. By Tuesday, I handed over every bit of footage from my security system, plus screenshots of the text messages the men had sent to my wife, threats disguised as warnings. Failure to comply with HOA enforcement could result in further action, one of them had written. That single line turned the case from neighborhood drama to a full-blown criminal investigation. 2 days later, deputies raided Loretta's home. They found printed violation notices, hundreds of dollars in unaccounted HOA cash, and digital receipts proving she'd paid the fake cops under the table. Turns out she'd been funding her little intimidation squad with community improvement money, over $40,000 in total. The charges piled up fast: fraud, conspiracy to commit assault, impersonation of law enforcement, and misuse of HOA funds. When her mugshot hit the news, the neighborhood exploded with relief. People who'd been afraid to speak up finally came forward. One man said Loretta's enforcers had threatened to tow his car for parking in his own driveway. Another admitted they'd fined him for having a U.S. flag on a short pole instead of a tall one. All fake, all intimidation. At the courthouse, I sat through every hearing. Loretta tried to act composed, but when the judge played the footage of her hired cops harassing my wife, her face drained of color. The courtroom stayed dead silent until the clip ended, me standing over one of her fake officers telling him, next time she better send a letter. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. Loretta was sentenced to 5 years in state prison, plus restitution to every homeowner she'd conned. The fake cops, they got 18 months each and permanent bans from working in any private security field again. When it was all over, Sarah and I sat on our porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunset. Neighbors waved as patrol cars drove past, and one shouted, "Bet they'll send a real cop next time." I just smiled. They picked the wrong family to threaten. And that's how a few fake cops, a corrupt HOA president, and one bad decision turned into the day Oak Ridge Meadows learned. Some homeowners don't call the police. We are the reason they show up. What do you think, folks? Should Loretta face even more charges for what she pulled? What would you have done if it was you? I'd really like to know. The end.